Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Cheerleader podcast. My name is Jasmine Neely, and we have a very special guest on the podcast today. And she's somebody that I've known my entire life. Obviously, when you figure out who it is, it'll be obvious. But we have the wonderful, incomparable Veronica Neely, also my mommy. Thank you for joining the podcast, mommy. And I really want to talk through what your experience has been like being a dance mom. Coming, when I was growing up, you put me in dance at the age of 3, and I want to know how your experience is or was from that age all the way through high school and even college and even to the pros. As you know, this podcast is about helping those who go pro or want to go pro, give them the opportunity to learn tips and tricks and really train to go to that pro level, because there's always levels to your dance career. So pro is for some people that highest level. So I want your perspective on being a dance mom. And some people that listen to this podcast are dance moms themselves, and they continue to dance. Some are not moms yet, but they had dance moms like I have had. And so I feel like it's a whole different type of community, whole different type of atmosphere that a lot of dancers don't really talk about or don't know about. So first off, I want you to just briefly introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, and I want you to tell me why you put me in dance in the first place.
My name is Veronica Neely, and I'm your mother. um, yes, and I'm from a little town in South Carolina called Greenwood, South Carolina. That's where I grew up. I went to college at HBCU in North Carolina, and I ended up here in North Carolina as my home, and that's where I raised Jasmine and her brother. And I pretty much the reason when Jasmine was a little girl, um, I took her to a recital that one of my one of my best friends, her daughter was in the recital, and she invited me to come to the recital. So I went to the recital, and I saw those beautiful little girls up there performing at the recital, and I just was amazed because that was the first time I'd ever been to a dance recital. And Jasmine was just she was about she was about 3 years old when I took her with me to my best friend's daughter's recital. And Jasmine, she was sitting there, and she was looking. She pretty much didn't even know what was going on, but she was watching the little girls and everything, and I just fell in love with their costumes and the performances, and I just knew immediately I had to get Jasmine into to dance after I went to the dance recital. So once I went to the dance recital, and I came home and I told my husband, oh, it was just so wonderful. Those little girls, they were just dancing and they were performing, and they were so wonderful. And I told my husband, I said, we have got to get Jasmine into that. And so I think it was the next couple of weeks. I asked my girlfriend, and where to go and everything, and she told me, go to this particular studio and sign her up. So I went to that studio and I signed Jasmine up. Um, it was almost immediately because I wanted her to be a part of something special. And the thing about this studio that Jasmine, that I put her in, it was um, it was all African American. The majority of the girls were African American, and the owner was also African American, and she pretty much had. She was the only studio in the area. Um, that we live in. It was the only studio that was owned by an African American woman. And I thought that that was amazing. Here is this Black woman who owns a studio, and she has all these little girls on the stage dancing, and she pretty much has a monopoly on the African American community. And these little girls, their costumes were just beautiful, and I like I said, and they were just dancing so beautifully. I knew I had to get Jasmine in there. So, like I said, I pretty much immediately signed her up for dance classes. And once I signed her up for dance classes at the dance studio, I she performed in her first dance uh, show. And after that, the owner or her assistant came up to me and she asked me, she said, "Would you like to put her in competition dance?" And I said, "Oh yeah." I said, I really didn't I really didn't know much about competition dancing. But I found out quickly what it was, because her first dance competition that she was in, we had to go, and we had to drive to another city, which was about 2 hours away. And so I we at the last minute, I'm in. It was a Sunday, and I'm getting a call, from the owner saying, you need to be in this particular city at such and such a time. And I'm like, you're kidding me. So we had to get her dressed and take her to the competition. And
Wait, I didn't know this. We were late to the competition?
No, you weren't late. It
Oh.
was just that it threw me off. It threw me off. I didn't know you had to be at that particular competition on that particular day, because I just wasn't prepared for it. Like I said, I wasn't prepared for competition dancing at all. So
Mhm.
I found out quickly what competition dancing was about. I was new to the dance world, and I didn't know what to expect. But so we took her to her first dance competition, and she did beautifully. And she performed beautifully, and she just looked like she was just all into it. So at that particular point, we were hooked. We were
Okay.
hooked. Jasmine was hooked, and we were hooked. And so um that particular dance competition did it all. And they performed a dance. They performed a dance called Boogie Woogie Piggy. And they had these little costumes on, little black dresses on, and they were just so cute. It was about maybe 8 girls, eight, maybe more. And those little girls up there, they were like 3 and 4 years old, and they were just the cutest little things up there with their dresses on. They just looked so adorable. So like I said, Jasmine was hooked after that first competition. And I was hooked after that first competition, because it was just they just looked so adorable up there dancing and everything. So after that, we pretty much stayed into the competition world up until the time Jasmine graduated. So she started at 3 in competition dance, and every year we would go back into competition. And so she stayed into it, like I said, up until 12th grade when she graduated high school. um,
So
and she was in competition for all those years, competition dance.
so
Mhm.
for you, you know you put me in at 3, but what gave and I was talking to my friend about this last weekend, and we were just thinking, or she was thinking, like, how, and it made me think about this. How did you know to keep me in dance all those years and like not stop? Was it up to me to decide that? Was it up to you? Like, how did you know, like, oh, she really, we should keep her in this as long as possible. We think, she's gonna be really good one day. We think that she could go off and dance in college and dance. Were you thinking that at the time? Or like what was your thought process in keeping me in dance?
Well, I did ask you pretty much all every year if you wanted to continue to do it. It wasn't about me, it was always about you and what you wanted to do. I didn't mind, and taking you traveling to the dance competitions which were in different cities. you know we had to travel to a lot of different cities, for dance competitions, but on the weekends, they were mostly on the weekends. And sometimes, I did have to take my Fridays off from work, to take you to certain competitions, but, that was not a problem. But I always asked you if you wanted to continue, but you were having a good time. I could see that you were having a good time. When you were little, you were having such a good time because you made so many friends. You were making friends, and the girls you were dancing with, you all were good friends. You would go to each other's birthday parties, and you would go out and have fun together with all the girls, and us, we as parents would all be together. And we were like a good little group there, at first. And we did things together. We would go out to eat. We would, you would, like I said, you would go to y'all would have go to each other's birthday parties and things. And so you were having a good time, you were making friends, and you were having a great time. I could see it because you were always happy, to go to, be with the other girl, the other dancers and everything. And so you were always happy about going to the competitions and going to, be with your friends during rehearsals and practices.
Okay.
So yes, you pretty much let me know you wanted to stay into it.
Well, thanks for asking me. I don't remember that I don't remember every year asking. I'm not saying that you did. I'm sure you did. Well, now I'm appreciative that you let it be
Mhm.
a decision that I wanted to make and not,
Yeah.
something that you wanted to
Yes.
make. And that
Oh,
leads me
yeah.
to my next question, but I feel like you watch the shows Dance Moms, and you've seen that show, I've seen the show, and it seems like those moms are a lot like stage moms, and they're very pushy, and they get overly involved and very competitive with everything, all the politics that goes into dancing and the dance world and competition dance and the studio culture. But
Mhm.
I never felt like you were super pushy. Like you said, you always came to me first and made me or helped me make my own decision or asked me, what I wanted to do. And so I just like things like doing my hair and my makeup, you always make sure that I looked presentable, that my hair was slicked back. And shout out to BB Dance Productions, the studio that I danced at. Um, so you always make sure that I looked good. So I guess what was your motivation for not being that overly, involved, overly pushy parent, like that stage mom? Because I never felt that from you, but I know some moms might have done that. Um, and I don't know if it's a way of vicariously living through their child, but why did you is it just the type of person you are? What was your motivation for that?
Well, like I said, I always wanted it to be about you. There were parents that were, you know, I felt like it was about them rather than their child.
Mm,
Um, there were some parents that I experienced that was like that, but I did not want to become that parent. I always wanted it to be about you and what you wanted to do. So, I had to, yes, I had to step back and check myself
mm,
sometimes, there were times, when I felt like maybe I should be a little bit more pushy, especially when you were younger. And sometimes, you were maybe, most of the girls in your group were a year older than you were. And I remember a lot of the girls were a year, and there were some years that you would be held back in a lower group.
yeah, I was
And
always in between. I felt like
right,
every other year. I was it
right,
with the older group or I was with the younger group.
you was always in between, right, of the older group and the younger group. You had some dances with the older group, and then you had some dances with the younger group. And there were sometimes I used to I didn't like that. I wanted you to be with the older group because most of the girls in the older group were the girls you started with.
Mm,
And I felt like, going to the dance instructor, and I wanted to tell her, that I wanted you to be in the older group that you started with. I didn't feel I felt bad for you when you were, with the younger group, because I just didn't feel like you were. I did always feel like you were more advanced than they were. And even though when you were in the younger groups, um, your the dance instructor, she would always put you out in front, because you were advanced. But I was like, you know, why can't she be with the older group? If she's that advanced, she should be with the older group. So, at that aspect, I wanted to say things, but I felt like, okay, she knew more than I did about dance. So I always had to check myself
mhm.
and tell myself that, it's her dance studio. She can do, pretty much, she knows what's best for you. So, at that aspect, I felt like I should have said more, but I didn't. So I just let her, put you where she felt like you needed to be.
Okay. That's good. I respect that. I
Mhm.
never knew that, and this is very refreshing because these are things that sometimes like I never thought about when I was a young girl. And speaking on that, I know we talked about this a little earlier yesterday, but what's something that I may not know about what it's like being a dance mom or what it's like in your experience being a dance mom? Because one day I'll probably have children and I have to decide, do I want to put my daughter, if I have a daughter, in dance? And I just want to know like how you just thinking about, my dance career and growing up in dance, what are the things that maybe I wouldn't have known about that maybe, if I have a daughter one day, I would want to know about? Or Maybe just anything that you think that I didn't know.
Um, I think you probably didn't know um a lot of things that went on with the parents. You know, there was a lot of competition between the parents. You know, as I said, um, some of the parents felt like, you know, maybe you were um, their child may have been good or just as good as you were. And there were times when your dance instructor would put you out front and maybe kind of like push another child back, you know, would dance in the background and you be dancing in the, you know, foreground. And parents were, you know, they always thought, okay, why is she always up front and my daughter's always back in the back? um Things like that, you know, happened. And you know, I got that sometimes with some of the parents. They even expressed their feelings toward, you know, to me, you know, um asking me, you know, and I'm like, I always told them, you know, it's the dance, it's the instructor's decision to do that. It's not my decision. The instructor, if you have a problem with it, you need to go talk to the instructor.
Mhm.
And I felt like she was making the best decision for the dance group, you know, as to who she put out front and who she put, you know, in the back. So, you know, there was a lot of competition with parents when certain dancers were pushed to the front and certain dances were put in the back. So parents felt like, you know, um, I think there was some jealousy. You
Mm.
know, there was some jealousy there for that
Oh,
for that
interesting.
reason.
That's interesting to know. And
Yeah.
I feel like as I just did a podcast about this, I feel like as dancers, we sometimes feel that too when it's a different thing when you're always put in the back, but and you never get a chance to go to the front. But I know sometimes that always wasn't the case. Like people got moved around a lot and there's different formations. And I think